What is a chemical reaction? This pre-lab video is meant to explain the procedures that you will follow in the experiment called What is a Chemical Reaction? You should have a handout called Supplement to Experiment 7. The purpose of this experiment is to note observable changes when mixing substances together that indicate a chemical reaction has occurred. You'll follow the procedure as indicated in the lab manual, noting the following changes. You'll use test tubes rather than reaction plates, and you'll omit the use of a thermometer. Please note the safety considerations. There are many bottles in your basket. Please make sure you read all the chemical labels carefully so that you are choosing the correct chemical for the particular reaction you're about to perform. Hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide are corrosive to skin and eyes. Ammonium hydroxide is also irritating to eyes and lungs. Silver nitrate will stain skin and clothes. Avoid contact of all chemicals with eyes, skin, and clothing. Wear chemical splash goggles. In the lab manual, it explains that you should be using a well plate. We are not going to be using well plates. Instead, you'll be using your test tubes that are in your lab drawer. You should have large test tubes and small test tubes in your lab drawer. We'll be using the large test tubes. The lab procedure calls for using a thermometer. We're not going to use a thermometer. Instead, you'll just feel the outside of the test tube to determine if the reaction is getting hotter or if it's getting colder. The lab instructions call for you to use forceps. Forceps is just a fancy name for tweezers. The only chemical that's not in your basket that you will need for this lab is magnesium. It comes in a thin ribbon, as pictured here. You'll need to obtain a sample from your teacher. Part A, reactions of hydrochloric acid. The formula for hydrochloric acid is HCl, and you'll find it in this bottle labeled 2M-HCl. The 2M refers to the concentration of this solution. Your data table for Part A should have the title Reactions of HCl, Hydrochloric Acid. Please add that to your data table at this point in time. You'll notice that on this data table you'll see the numbers 8, 9, and 12. These numbers correspond to the steps that are in the lab manual in experiment number 7. First thing you'll do is you will make sure you include 20 drops of HCl in your test tube, in your first test tube. You'll make observations of the HCl here. The instructions call for a small portion of sodium bicarbonate, NaHCO3. This is baking soda. I would recommend that you use about the size of a pea. Record your observations of sodium bicarbonate here. In this column, you'll be recording your observations during and after mixing. What I want you to focus on is the changes that occur. You're looking for signs of a chemical reaction in this lab, so we want to notice what those changes might look like. In a new test tube, you will put 20 drops of HCl into a test tube. Silver nitrate is in a dropper bottle. You will add 20 drops of silver nitrate. Record your observations in this column over here. Into a third test tube, you will place 20 drops of hydrochloric acid, and then you will add the small piece of magnesium that the teacher has given you. Part B of this lab is called Reactions of Cupric Chloride, CuCl2. Cupric chloride is an older name for this blue solution. It is now referred to as copper 2 chloride, with the 2 being a Roman numeral. You'll find it in the plastic dropper bottle. It's a blue solution and it's labeled 0.5 m. Again, the 0.5 refers to the concentration of this solution. The data table for Part B should have the title Reactions of CuCl2, Copper 2 Chloride. Again, you will find copper 2 chloride, put 20 drops into a clean test tube, note its physical properties here. You'll find a little square of aluminum foil in your basket. It should be just loose and inside the basket. Please record your observations of aluminum here. After you ball up the little piece of aluminum, you can place it into the test tube with the 20 drops of copper chloride, and you can note the changes that happen during the reaction. In step 18, you'll be putting 20 drops of CuCl2 and a small piece of zinc. Number 19, 20 drops of copper chloride will be reacted with 20 drops of ammonium hydroxide. In number 20, you'll be reacting 20 drops of copper chloride with 20 drops of sodium carbonate. Notice this is sodium carbonate. This is a solution of sodium carbonate in a dropper bottle. It is not the same thing as sodium bicarbonate. In step number 21, you'll be adding 20 drops of copper chloride into a new test tube, and then you will place 20 drops of silver nitrate into that same test tube. This is the same silver nitrate that you would have used in part A. For cleanup, use your forceps to place any unreacted metals into the waste beaker. This is what your waste beaker should look like. Please do not allow the metals to go down the sink. Any of these solutions can be rinsed down the sink with water, but just not the solids. You'll then rinse your test tubes in the sink, place your test tubes back in the rack, and return the test tubes back to your lab drawer. Thank you. This has been a pre-lab video for the experiment called What is a Chemical Reaction?